What do you do if all of your beta readers have different opinions about your books and you're not sure who to listen to? Let's break this down for you to make sure that you are making the best choices for your manuscript. So when it comes to beta readers, we don't want a bunch of beta readers. You should not be having a bunch of beta readers. This is not a thing that we're doing. You pick 2 to 3 beta readers, and these people have to be highly qualified people. They're not your friends, they're not your family, they're not your sister, they're not your mom. They are people who are qualified in the genre in which you are writing. Best practices suggest it's going to be somebody else who's also a writer on your level. This will help you out the most. Just pulling in readers doesn't mean they're going to be able to give you valuable feedback just because they read a lot in that genre. You should be working with people who are on your level, who are also working toward the same end goals, because they're going to be in a different mindset. People who are readers who are just coming in and want to be helpful are going to give you opinions. People who are authors who are coming in to critique you and make you better are going to act more like critique partners, and they're going to be able to look at it from a professional standpoint and give you valuable editorial information on your stories. 2 very different mindsets with this. So you're picking 2 to 3 people, and you may even want to space these people out. You may want to do beta reader 1, get notes back, then do beta reader 2 and get notes back, then do beta reader 3 and get notes back, and make changes and change things as needed. But well, more importantly, when it comes to this, is that you don't have to take everything that they say as fact. These people are not in charge of your book, you are. So you're not necessarily looking at them as an editor. You're not saying that their opinions and their feelings and the things that they're expressing are the end-all be-all of your story and you have to make these changes. You don't even have to do that with your editor unless you're a traditionally published editor and they're forcing you to. So at that point, you have the ability to decide what you take on for your story. Yes, they're going to have opinions, they're going to have feelings, they're going to have things that they think about your book. That doesn't mean that you have to implement those things into what you're creating. You are going to be going through and looking for valuable information. What will make my book better? You have to be objective about this. Oftentimes we get in this creative mindset with our stories, and the muses have spoken to us, and it's perfect just the way that it is. It's exactly what it needs to be, but it's not. It is a finished product that we are trying to put out in the world for money. You have to look at it from an entrepreneurial perspective. You have to be detached from it. As you're writing, be in your vibes, be creative, do all the great things. But as soon as you start the editing process, now we have to look at it with a marketing mindset. We have to understand things will be changed to make it better, and we can't be so attached to it that we can't see what would make it better. We're getting this feedback in order to enhance what we have already created. We're close to our stories. We are not objective about them. And so we're going to miss things. We're going to overlook things. We're not going to understand things. People will have valuable insight because they're objective on this. So at that point, now you've got notes from multiple people. If you're not sure what to do, you are going to start to look for trends and patterns in their notes. What are all these people saying that is overlapping? These are the things we need to focus on first. We need to make sure that if everybody's saying this scene doesn't work, there's a pretty good chance that that scene's not working. If everybody's saying, we really love this side character, we would love to see more of that side character, that's a pretty good indication that readers are going to like that character and maybe want to see a little more of it. Maybe it's time to work in a couple extra scenes or a couple extra pieces of dialogue. You have the ability to look for trends, repeated things that people are saying, and then figure out how to implement that or what's underlying on that into your story. You don't have to take in everybody's wild opinions. You don't have to go from here and over here and bring all these things in. We don't have to do that. Look for things that overlap and look for things that make sense for your characters and for your stories. Again, nobody knows your story the way that you do. You understand where you're going with the story, and the only time you have to change anything is if you are a traditionally published author because you have signed away your rights to your story. You are mandated by the contract that you signed to make the changes they require. Outside of that, it's up to you. People will have valuable insight that you can and should be listening to and taking into consideration, but it doesn't mean you have to take action on it. So when it comes down to this, make sure you have highly qualified beta readers, preferably people who are also writers and going into the same space as you. You are going to either have it all happen at the same time, or you're going to go through one at a time to make changes that you see necessary and then hand it off to the next person to see if they still say the same thing. And if they do, then you need to work on it for real. You then need to make sure you're looking at all the notes that they've given you, all of the information that you have been receiving on this, and look for overlaps, trends, patterns, things that have been pointed out repetitively. These are things you need to be looking at and taking into consideration as you're making your final pass before sending it to professional editing. But keep in mind, if you are in a situation where you're getting a lot of feedback and you just don't know what to do, from your beta readers, it is now time to step away from beta readers and pull in an actual professional. A developmental editor is someone who is a professional editor who is meant to come in and look at the overall structure of your story. They're looking for plot holes and errors and issues. Their job is not to correct your grammar and punctuation. It is to come in and see where you need to tighten scenes up, where you can remove things, where you need to flesh things out a little bit more. They're looking for the overall part of your storytelling that's going to make this sellable. They are very trained in this, and they are going to be a reliable source of information. And again, you don't have to do every single thing that they say if you don't want to, unless you're traditionally published and you're mandated to. But I would recommend, if you are struggling with this, if you're not sure how to enhance your story, to make it better, to make it ready to go to publishing, you need to get a developmental editor, especially if you're new. I highly recommend, I cannot say enough good things about working with a developmental editor within even the course of your first 3 or 4 books. Until you have a strategy, until you are proven out in the world and you truly understand what you're doing within your own writing structures, work with somebody, work with a professional. It's well worth the investment. And so you can work with your beta readers, but you have to be smart about how you're doing it. You have to look for those patterns and overlaps. You have to take those things into consideration and then make the choices for your books. And again, if you're traditionally published, you have to do whatever they say because that's mandated by your contract. But outside of that, you get to make these final decisions. You get to decide what's best for your books, your characters, and manuscript, and how you will be able to sell that manuscript. Questions, comments, drop them down below. We're dropping videos every single day to help you level up what you're doing inside of the publishing industry so that you can thrive in this space, and we are more than happy to get your questions answered for you. So I'll see you in the next episode getting your questions answered.